By the way, Doug Gottlieb's having Tyrann Mathieu later on his show today. Come on in, Doug. The Doug are after me, Fox Sports Radio, 3 to 6. Should mention that because Ty dropped a little bit of a hint that Russell Wilson was going to leave the city. So Russell Wilson signs, and that, let's be honest, it's great for Seattle, right? Because that division's got all sorts of good coaches, good quarterbacks, maybe Kyler Murray. My takeaway on this a month ago, and I was told this, Russell was tired of the 12th man, Pete Carroll, John Snyder, the wind, the rain, and everybody but Russell being considered the face of the franchise. And I think they had to do he put a line. Does
Colin get a portion, right? Like Mark Rodgers is his agent.
Yes.
Do you get a portion of it as well?
I should get a free dinner.
I think so, because Mark Rodgers came out today and said, well, he made a compromise to stay in the city. Like, what compromise? Like John Snyder opened up the bank vault to a guy who he had under club control, not just this year, but potentially the next 2 or even 3 years if they wanted to franchise tag him.
Right.
And look, what Seattle gets is they get cost certainty. Obviously, it's a lot more cost than they probably wanted to spend.
Right.
But they know every GM you talk to, like, look, I know the quarterback's going to cost me a lot in the second and third deal, but I got to know exactly what that is instead of the moving target.
And the cap's going up. There is a sense in the league the cap's going to make a big move up in the next, 18 months?
Yes. My takeaway is, like, what was it, B.A. Baracus used to say, Mr. T used to say, I pity the fool that faces Aaron Rodgers during this season. Aaron Rodgers does not like Russell Wilson. That is public. He doesn't like the water that Russell Wilson at one time said cured his concussion or kept him from being concussed.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the whole acting when he said, basically God helped them beat the Packers in the NFC Championship game. Like, he doesn't like that. So, and now Russell Wilson is making more money than Aaron Rodgers. This a week after there's an article that basically calls out the arrogance and leadership of Aaron Rodgers and the dysfunction within his relationship with his old head coach, Mike McCarthy. Like, my takeaway is, dude, Aaron Rodgers sitting there, you know how he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder, bag of chips on his shoulder. He's got to be ticked.
I will say this, of the 5 highest paid quarterbacks outside of Kirk Cousins, who I'd much rather pay $22 million than $28. Rest of them I'm fine. Matt Ryan makes $30. What would Atlanta be without Matt Ryan? You got to pay this position.
Do you?
Well, I think I will say this. Hey, let's be honest about this. I got McVay and Goff. They're not going anywhere. Shanahan, Garoppolo. That's 4 games a year where in the NFL with the new rules today, you got to outscore people. You can't Mitch Trubisky your way to a Super Bowl. Matt Nagy's as clever a guy as the league has. In the end, they couldn't win a playoff game because you got to score.
I understand, but we also should look at trends in the NFL, right? How have the Cowboys been able to load up with a very talented roster, not having to pay their quarterback? Same thing with the Rams. How are they able to keep Aaron
Donald?
Yeah, but
Dak's not close to Russell.
I'm not saying that. Look, I think Russell Wilson's great. Okay, I think Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan and like all those dudes. I'm with you with Jimmy Jesus if healthy. Like, I think those guys outside of Cousins who doesn't seem to have it for the big games.
Yeah.
Those guys are all great, but even Tom Brady doesn't take top dollar.
Yes.
Because the guys that take top dollar, it's hard to fill out a roster.
It is.
Unless you kill it in the draft. And you have to draft really, really well. And that was the secret to Seattle, though. Seattle started this trend.
Yes.
They drafted well, but they also had Russell Wilson under a rookie deal as a third-round draft pick, and that allowed them to build the Legion of Boom and to pay some dudes. Now you're not going to be able to pay guys.
And Seattle's drafting, by the way, has gone down precipitously in the last 3 years. Haven't drafted a Pro Bowler in 5 years.
Their draft the last 2 years has actually been pretty good. Like, that defense, that was a pretty good team last year, considering what they had to cobble together, considering what they had. My issue with it is, like, look at trends in the NFL and the top paid guys. Remember, GMs don't take the money that they save and put it in their pockets. They take the money that they save and they spread it around to their teams and the teams that have the overall best talent. Bears have great talent. They don't have a great quarterback. Trubisky doesn't have it for me.
Yeah.
But they're going to be there around the NFC playoffs
for 2 more years
because they got dudes everywhere and they can take and they're built to play in Soldier Field where you don't need a great quarterback.
Yeah. You always hear this criticism of the American media. They live in a bubble. And a lot of it's true. You're on the coast. You're in D.C. You have good incomes. And people say, the media doesn't really relate to people. I think it's a very, very legitimate criticism of the American media, myself included. Bubble, coastal living. I would argue that San Francisco, the Warriors, is the basketball bubble. Steve Kerr protects you because he's so good with the media. Steph and Clay have virtually no ego. You got the tough guy, Draymond's the club bouncer. You have one of the egoless GMs in the league in Bob Myers. It's basketball nirvana. It's a little bit of a bubble. we know that Mr. Unreliable headline in OKC threw him into a tizzy. We knew he had a burner account with Twitter. We've seen him get testy with a pretty soft, generally San Francisco media. I'm watching Patrick Beverley get into KD's head. And I'm thinking, by the way, all this insulation in San Francisco, it doesn't go with you to New York. I'm watching once again the world's best or second best basketball player kind of get thrown off his game mentally by Patrick Beverley.
Well, let's start with, just the clip that we're showing here where Patrick Beverley climbs in, puts both hands, and then flops like he got elbowed. Right? Like, look, the NFL, the NBA has to do something about this. They allow the nonsense to continue. The WWE flopping all over the place and getting this is like what happens in youth basketball, where the big guy always gets called for the foul. Mm-hmm. If they did that to Steph, the guy would foul out in the first 6 minutes of the game. So, and this is nothing new. We saw PJ Tucker do this last year in the playoffs to him. Like, the scouting report comes out in the playoffs, right? Get into KD, be super, super physical with him, make him make shots over you. And KD, though he's, look, every time you make contact like that, it's supposed to be a foul in the NBA. And they don't call it because he's 7 feet tall.
And it's also the playoffs, and the refs do let the postseason tends to be more physical.
It's reached the point where it's kind of ridiculous. And again, I love what the Clippers did last night. That team screams. Everything about the Clippers scream, with the exception of the fact that they're the Clippers, screams that's a team that a star should want to play for, right? You got a head coach that won an NBA championship. You got an owner over there who's the greatest fanboy on earth. And you got a couple young guys, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then Landry Shamet hits a huge three. You got a walking bucket in Lou Williams. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, Colin, are making a combined $14 million.
Let's get back to KD.
Okay.
He's the best basketball player in the world.
I appreciate you saying that.
Patrick Beverley cannot throw him off his game.
Okay, so I think what the Warriors are going to do is they're going to end all this, and they're going to stop trying to do all the other stuff, and they'll throw it to him, and KD will have 60, and Patrick Beverley will foul out, and that'll be the end of that. Look, the bigger issue is DeMarcus Cousins is out for the playoffs, and now they're going to be either starting a backup at the 5 in Kevon Looney, okay, or they're going to be throwing Andre Iguodala or Sean Livingston out there who can't play major minutes for long periods of time. Like, and the scouting report is there with Kevin Durant. You can get underneath them. They're all going to get into his body and make him make shots over physical play. So I think that there are cracks in the armor of the Warriors. They're not going to lose to the Clippers in the series, but you could see a path for a team to beat them in the playoffs.
Well, I think there's a game plan with the Warriors, and I almost think it's always a game plan. It was a game plan on the Showtime Lakers. Physical basketball disrupts highly skilled basketball. So, like the Pistons, they just made it ugly for Michael Jordan.
Right.
Now, eventually, Michael, Pippen, they add Kukoc. Then you have too many good players. But, the way to beat the Warriors has been the way to disrupt Magic and the Showtime Lakers.
The way to beat Peyton Manning when he was with the Colts, with the Patriots, right? Be physical with their wide receivers.
That's it. That's just kind of the way to beat great teams is ugly the game up. Make it really ugly and physical. Cheap fouls. Have a little depth. Have a couple bigs. You can hack guys. And I think it does, to some degree, work. Okay, let's go to the Ben Simmons thing. I was saying he's got a little Cam Newton. Is that physically, Cam Newton doesn't look like quarterbacks. Ben Simmons doesn't look like guards in my life outside of Magic. They are both transformative talents, but they're both wildly inconsistent. Simmons some nights and Cam some days. And I look at him and I think to myself, because Simmons can't shoot, the league's now become a shooting league, and Cam's not a precision thrower, and that's now what the NFL is that if you want to be consistent as a quarterback or a basketball player, You gotta be able to you gotta own the current culture. If Ben can't shoot, Doug, isn't this what he's gonna be all over the map?
Yes and no. Remember, he's in his third year in the league, his second year on a basketball playing surface. Magic couldn't shoot early. Frankly, LeBron was a wildly inconsistent shooter. He's become a really good shooter.
He was.
You look, Michael Jordan wasn't a good shooter. And, even Giannis, who's going to be probably the MVP of this league, still is not a very good shooter. He takes a lot of shots. Now, the difference is Giannis had a team kind of created around him of shooting, whereas Philadelphia has taken away some of those shooters. I think the big difference in Ben Simmons and Cam Newton is Ben Simmons has a tremendous amount of sports basketball IQ. He is actually too smart for his own good. He doesn't take those shots because he knows he can't make those shots. Whereas Cam Newton, he's never really evolved as a thinking man's player. I do believe, you're right, he's going to have to develop a perimeter game if he wants to be a superstar, but I think he's smart enough to know what shots he can and can't take. It's just going to take massive time. And look, I thought I thought they made some really good adjustments just going into the post. If Brooklyn wants to go small, we'll beat you. I mean, they scored 135 points last night, right? Or some, actually more than that.
Philadelphia should just put their big lineup in. Their big lineup is just huge.
Right. So Brooklyn's trying to play small, and they're just like, the hell with trying to play small. Let's just throw it in the post and beat you going big. But look, Brett Brown was a guy to get them from being terrible to being good. I don't know if he's a guy that can get them from being good to being great.
That's fair.
That's a big jump. And he's only in his second year in the league. We had to be fair to him in comparison to other players' career arcs.
I mean, in the history of the one and done, I mean, Ben Simmons, until Zion, maybe Ja Morant, I mean, I look at Ben Simmons and I'm like, I went crazy last year. I'm like, 10.5 point. Yep. I mean, vision, defends, at the rim.
Ambidextrous.
Could I make this argument about him? Is that Embiid's not a perfect fit. If you put him with a center who could shoot, a Chris Bosh in his prime, who goes outside, takes the big out of the lane, Simmons then, therefore...
Like Brook Lopez. Yeah, now, look, Embiid can shoot, but he's also very early in his career, and the problem with Embiid is he doesn't know he doesn't understand championship basketball, what is and what isn't a good shot. Sometimes they're open for a reason, and he doesn't seem to be right. So, look, there's issues there, but you would definitely want Ben Simmons on your team. Can I just add, you guys had a great back and forth, kind of who's on first about the Lakers.
Minute and a half, go.
That story is completely accurate. Like, you're screwed if you hire Ty Lue. You're hiring a coach before you hire a president, and you're hiring a coach that has ties to LeBron. And all those other agents and free agents, they already don't like and trust Rob Pelinka. Now they think LeBron's calling all the shots, and if you're not rep by Rich Paul, you don't want anything to do with it. Like, so who they hire will tell you all you need to know. If they hire Monty Williams is beloved by everybody in the NBA, and he can work with a lot of people.
Yeah, good dude.
If they hired Ty Lue, they're going Team LeBron, and they're just going to ride it out and see how it works. The difference is that LeBron now is not LeBron of 2 or 3 years ago, or at least he has not seemed to be that way.
Here's the thing. Do you feel as an organization, Ty Lue is here and Monty Williams is here, and I think they're both really capable guys. So if let's say I think Ty's a little better. It doesn't matter. I would rather if I think, Monty will grow into being a great head coach. I would rather do that and not send a message to the league. We're Cleveland West. That would.
Remember, you can't get David Griffin because now he's with the Pelicans. So who are you going to get to be your president that has a tie to LeBron James?
It is weird. The golden rule in sports is you don't hire a coach before a president. Like, that's the golden rule in sports. Okay, Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.